to Two Cooks in the Kitchen. We are going to make this beautiful blueberry cream cheese puff pastry braid. This is really a nice thing, and I've got an easy recipe for puff pastry. Kelly said I garnished it like an Indian wedding, but it looked so lost on this big platter that I had to do something. So anyway, let's start off by making the puff pastry. We're going to make a puff pastry. This is a very easy way to make puff pastry. I've done this once and it worked very, very well. I've always had difficulty with the ones where you got to keep the dough cold all the time. You roll it out on a cold marble surface. It just is like impossible to deal with. And I've had mixed results. So we're going to do this one, and hopefully it'll work out just fine. If it doesn't, you won't see this video. So we're going to start with a quarter cup of water that's between 100 and 110 degrees. These thermal pans are just excellent little devices that come from Thermal Works. They're fairly cheap, fast, and they're accurate. So we're going to take one package of yeast, which is I think 2¼ teaspoons or something. It's pretty standard measurements, so a package of yeast is always the same. And we're going to add our 110 degree water, and we're going to add about a tablespoon of sugar.
Oh, I see. That's not a tablespoon.
No, we're going to take total sugar is going to be a ¼ cup, but we're going to put a tablespoon or so in this. We're going to whisk it up. And we're going to let this sit for about 15 minutes and let the yeast bloom. And we'll come back and we'll look at what we're expecting. If it doesn't bloom, we'll start all over again. All right, so it's really this is supposed to happen in 5 minutes, not 15 minutes. And as you can see, this really hasn't done very much. It's bloomed a little bit, but it's not really the kind of activity I want to see in here. So I'm going to start over. And this time, I'll use a smaller bowl so it has a little more depth. I've also warmed the bowl up. And make sure our water temp is where it needs to be. And we'll pour the yeast in. Oh, I didn't cut that far enough. Get the water on there. And we'll even measure the sugar this time. So our about a tablespoon will be more like a tablespoon. And then we'll whisk that up. And we'll give this 5 minutes in this bowl. And hopefully we'll see much more activity out of this. All right, so we've had our 5 minutes with this batch, and as you can see, it's got a nice uniform foaminess. So we are gonna go with that. And I'm gonna put it back in the bigger bowl now, and we'll add the rest of our wet ingredients. Well, not all of them are wet, but so to this we will add a ½ cup of whole milk that has been brought to room temperature, and it's very important that the milk is at room temperature so you don't slow down the yeast. I am very fond of goat milk, and I use it for all my milky needs, and so that's what I've got in here, but any kind of whole milk will do. 1 egg, also at room temperature. the remainder of our 1/4 cup of sugar and 1 teaspoon of salt. And we're going to mix all this together and then start to work on our butter and flour. All right, so that's nice. Now, we need 2½ cups of flour. And today we are going to be using sprouted wheat flour from Humboldt Grain Girls. Now, I found this flour to be pretty light. If we could actually measure this by weight, that would be the best. But this recipe doesn't do that. It just calls for 2½ cups. So when you measure flour, you don't want to drag the cup through the flour because that can compact it and change your measurement. All you really want to do is spoon it in to your measuring cup, and that will give you the most accurate measurement. You don't want to pack it in or anything. So, we're not quite there yet. And there's our, not quite, 2½ cups.
Did you mention that sprouted wheat flour?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Okay, so there's our 2½ cups of flour. Into the food processor it goes. And then we need 14 tablespoons of honed butter. And 14 tablespoons is a cube, 1 3/4 cubes. And so by the time you cut a cube of butter up, it's already starting to get warm. So I cut it and put it back in the fridge. And then when I put it in here, it's still cold. And we'll get through this part and get to pulsing this butter right away. And we just want to get this until the butter is grain about the size of a pea. That's what they always say. Let's see what we got. I think it needs more. Yeah, now I'm seeing more of the grain. That's looking pretty good now. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So we'll put this in with our yeast mixture here. And we're just gonna get this incorporated. And then we're gonna chill it. This is not gonna be the tool for this job. So doing this way, this dough has quite a lot of large pieces of butter in it, which works out really well. And that's what helps provide the flakiness for this particular dough. I recall it being pretty wet. This seems super wet though. We are going to roll this out on a piece of plastic wrap. wrap it up tightly. And into the fridge, this goes for anywhere from 4 to 24 hours. And I'm going to wrap it some more because I'm not happy with that. Okay. And there you have step 1. All right, so our dough sat in the fridge for pretty much 24 hours. And it came out, it was really quite wet, so I've worked in a little more flour into it. And so using quite a bit of flour here, what we're going to do is we're going to roll this out into a rectangle. And yeah, it's something like that. And then we're going to fold it in thirds, as if it were, you know, like a letter or something. And it's still not holding together awfully well. We'll roll this out again. So this is, with this dough, this is the process of building up layers of dough, is all this rolling and folding. And we don't have to really be too concerned about keeping it tremendously cold or anything, which is much nicer than other puff pastries I've made. And we're going to do this 3 times. And then we're going to pop it back in the fridge. And the next time, it can be anywhere from 1 hour to 48 hours before you use the dough. And it can also be frozen at this point for later. It just does not seem to be holding together properly here, but we'll see.
Might work good for something like a galette where you don't have to be super exact. That's a good better.
Okay, so this is our little package that we are going to put back in the fridge. All right, so let's make a cream cheese filling. In the bowl of my stand mixer, I have 1 8-ounce packet of cream cheese, to which I'm going to add 1 egg yolk, and then we're just going to mix these together. We're going to have to rearrange that a little bit. Oh, I know why.
The wrong thingy? Should we start over? Oh, you lift the bowl up.
Mixers work when you lift the bowl up. So this will mix together, get all light and fluffy, and then we'll add some other things to it. Yeah. What you do for entertainment, you sit around and watch the mixer.
And then lift the beater. Not while it's going.
No, you get your tongue caught in there.
Tongue tied.
And then it just suck you right in. Scrape down a little right here because it's not getting that. And then we'll add to this a 1/4 cup of sugar. A teaspoon of vanilla. And a teaspoon of lemon juice. And instead of getting out an entire lemon and wasting half of it, I'm just going to use this stuff. It's good, it's lemony. We have a lemon tree, and we could actually get fresh lemon juice, but I'm too lazy.
I was going to say L is for lazy.
And we'll just fluff this up.
Oh, that looks good.
Yeah. And then this can sit in the fridge until we're ready to assemble our pastry. All right, so our dough now has chilled yet again, and we're going to cut it in half or thereabouts, because this is actually enough to make 2 desserts, and we'll have a half that we can freeze and use it again later for something, which will be good. And let's roll this out and just see what it's like. It's still a nice wet dough. Like fairly wet. I would never leave dough this wet, but I remember this recipe and it just is like that. So we're looking for a nice even puff pastry. That isn't stuck to the countertop. You know, this is working pretty good, actually. I'm pretty happy with this. So what we're going to do with this, to get it in its final shape, we're going to go straight to a silk pad. But there you have a rolled out sheet of pastry. Okay, so I've lifted my dough onto the sill pad here. This dough is definitely going to leak some butter as it cooks, so you need a pan that has a wall on it. And I cut a notch out of each shoulder here, and I made a little tail here, and I've just used this pizza cutter to cut some slits, hopefully fairly evenly along the length of the thing. And we're going to put our cream cheese filling in the middle here. And this needs to get pretty evenly spread in there. And this may be more than enough with the cream cheese filling. I think it's supposed to be enough for 2 braids, but I'm like, well, why skimp? This is gonna be good.
Save some for a snack.
Yeah, put it on a cracker. All right, and then we have some frozen blueberries. And you really do not need to thaw these. They can make kind of a mess if you do. And we're just gonna get them on top of this. And I think it's up to you how dense you want them. I think I kind of want them pretty dense. We'll see how that works out. So nice to have frozen blueberries that we picked this summer. You can just have them all year long. So the tricky part with this dough, remember this is the sprouted flour dough, which has less gluten, and gluten helps things hold together. So I expect this dough to be a little tricky when it comes to folding this up, but I think we're going to be able to do it anyway. And here we find out. Look at that. Could not be better. Look at that. So far, so good. Want to trap all that cheesy goodness in here.
Yeah, puzzles to give to me again. Looks beautiful.
It's coming together pretty good. I won't say I'm terribly surprised, but I am. When we get down here to the end, we'll fold the little flap up and use our last little tails to wrap it up. Voila! There you have it rolled up. All right, so now we need an egg wash. Give this a nice golden color as it bakes. 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of milk, and again, I'm just fond of goat milk. A fondness I developed when I lived in Hawaii and had helped the neighbor milk her goats, and so we always had milk. It was great. And we're going to just whisk this together a bit. And yeah, I got the brush out. We're just going to brush this on lightly. We're going to cook this at 400 degrees, which reminds me, I should probably turn the oven on if we plan on that happening. Oh, no. That's not right, because we need to chill this a little before we put it in the oven. So while the oven's heating up, we will chill this. It only needs about 15 minutes. You can leave it longer if you like, but
Yeah, it'd be nice to do it ahead and then pop it in the oven.
See, this you can have this all done. Yeah. This done the night before, and then in the morning, stick this in the oven and have lovely hot Danish for breakfast. And lastly, some sliced almonds. Give it a little crunch on top. And then we'll pop this in the fridge for about 15 minutes. Put it in the oven for about 20 minutes. I'd say it's going to be 20 to 25 is probably going to be the reality here. But you know, you keep an eye on it. Make sure it cooks right. And there you have it. We'll see what happens. All right, so here's our Danish. It stayed in the oven for 20 minutes total. I turned it after 15, so it'd be a little more even. I looked at it at 20, expecting it to need another 5 more minutes, and it didn't. It was just done. So this is looking beautiful. We're gonna put the frosting on now. Frosting, it's good stuff. So I have here a half a cup of powdered sugar. I'm going to add to that 1 tablespoon of the notorious goat milk, and 1/2 a teaspoon of vanilla. And you can play with the consistency of this by adding more or less milk. To my recollection, this comes out really well like this. So we'll see. I'm gonna whisk this together. And it's, you know, it's powdered sugar, so it melts really fast and nicely. That looks completely drizzleable. So, I'm setting dirty things on the counter today. That's something I would never do. I'd put them in the sink or...
This is fine.
But today...
Cleanup crew will get them for you.
So we're looking for a drizzle. You don't want this to be like a solid frosting or anything. Just
kind of like a glaze, I think is sort of what you're doing.
A little something to sweeten it up a little. Oh, doesn't that look good? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Looks perfect.
I think that's going to be plenty. Oh, and there you have it. The cream cheese and blueberry Danish braid. Thanks for watching Two Cooks in the Kitchen, and we'll see you next time.